John Wick has some of the most insane car crashes, motorcycle crashes, and brutal assassination sequences you could ever ask for in an action movie. Let's talk about how they bring that to life, yeah? The Fall, you know the one. What if I told you everything about The Fall was 100% real? And Keanu Reeves is more or less completely made out of steel.
Which we know is true.
Yes, that's true.
Well, I'd be lying, but only kind of. It wasn't actually Keanu doing that stunt. We have to talk about Jackson Spidell's incredible performance in this scene. Basically, because the height of the fall was too high to shoot in one sequence. They had to split it up into sections and put it all together with the visual effects later. The structures that he hit really did bend though. They were made out of rubber, so they would bend with impact. The one thing that was a little too accurate, on that other hand, was the slam to the ground. It was a little harder, and more realistic than intended. Ouch! Jackson Spidell isn't the only one taking hits for major stunts. Keanu is known for doing as many stunts as possible, even if they are incredibly dangerous for a regular Hollywood actor. I'll definitely be getting more into that later, but for now, I want to talk about motorcycles. This scene in Chapter 3 was too much of a liability to not be CGI. Doesn't make it any less sick, though. The fact that it genuinely defies the laws of physics makes it even more entertaining in my opinion. The scene was inspired by a sequence in the movie The Villainess that both Keanu and director Chad Stahelski really like. To everyone's utter surprise, the scene was extremely difficult and dangerous to shoot practically, so they ended up creating it with green screens and locked vehicles on moving platforms. So basically, Keanu and the rest of the guys sat on bikes stationed on platforms that were pushed around by other guys wearing green suits.
Suit sucks.
They were trying to mimic what they did on the set of The Villainess.
It wasn't as simple as we thought it was. It was a lot of work and it was a lot of creative skill. This is tipping our hat to them.
The amount of work they had to do for this scene was actually insane. The guys pushing the bikes had to know the fight choreography, even though they weren't performing it, and they had to know the camera movements so they could push the bikes accordingly. Can you imagine telling people that your job for the week is to push Keanu Reeves around on a motorcycle while he hits guys in the face? Not sure if I'm qualified, but I'm trying to apply. Carfu. If you know, you know. This scene in Chapter 1 was actually supposed to be a lot more elaborate and intense, but they didn't have the budget for all that. According to Chad Stahelski, they were about 10 cars too short to get the scene they really wanted. So instead, they opted for a fully practical scene where Keanu Reeves gets to do some of his own stunt driving. Or car bashing, rather. He took a stunt driving course with Jeremy Fry, where he learned how to do a sliding drift with one hand and shoot his gun out the window with the other, which might honestly be the most rad thing I've ever heard of anyone doing, like, ever. Where can I sign up to take a class that teaches me how to do that? Would certainly be a neat party trick to show off to my friends, or make being stuck in traffic more fun. In a safe manner, of course. This is the opening scene for John Wick 2. The stunt driver handling the motorcycle is Joe Dryden, and this scene is, for the most part, completely practical. It was Joe's most difficult scene he's ever done in his entire career. When the camera pans down to the crash, behind the scenes they've already laid Joe and the motorcycle down and slid them down the road. It took 9 takes to complete. Can you imagine having to slide down the middle of the road with a motorcycle 9 freaking times, jump back up, and take off full speed? These guys are living real-life GTA out here. So here's another one that ended up being way too dangerous to do practically though. Joe Dryden, our resident GTA stuntman, really wanted to do it himself and actually argued for it. So yeah, obviously that didn't happen, so instead they put a dummy on the bike, towed it into the door, then topped it off with a bit of CGI, and voila, no set injuries. Who else was like super anxious about how they were gonna clean up all that glass in the end? Well, apparently nobody on set, because most of it was done with CGI. This was in Chapter 3. Originally, the glass cabinets were built to explode on their own, but they couldn't get them to all explode at the right time. Eventually, they just ended up narrowing down the movements with real glass to only 2. One of them being when a guy gets kicked into it, causing it to explode, and the other is just a cabinet on the lower level. The rest of the glass is, like, all digital. But did you know the glass was digital when you first watched it? Who else is ready to go out and buy a motorcycle after all this? No? Yeah, me neither. But I do love watching creative people put together a near impossible bike fight, Keanu Reeves drift cars with one hand, and, of course, we can't forget Joe Dryden's GTA skills. So, what do you think are some of John Wick's best moments?